Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of work from light to dark as I go towards the edges of the circle. So I'm going to take a little bit of green with my wet brush, and I'm just going to work this color into the puddle of water, nice and light. And do you notice I'm breaking up my brush strokes? I'm not doing a solid straight line. I'm kind of trailing my brush, and I twist and I pull and I push the bristles across the paper, leaving some white spots as I go, very loose. Now I can add a little more water next to it. Now what's going to happen is that water next to that wet paint, they're going to bleed together a little bit, and that's okay. We want those edges to kind of fuse together. A little bit more water. I don't want huge puddles of water. I'm kind of controlling. I'm pushing that water across my paper enough so that those puddles are gone and that it's just wet paper that's left behind. It's just kind of shiny wet paper. There's no big puddle of water sitting on the paper. So this is looking very nicely. I have some darker areas and some lighter areas of the green. Now I'm going to go in. I'm going to grab some of this purple. I'm going to put it on my palette on that little lid, and I'm going to add some water to it because the purple is dark and it's very intense, and if I go next to this green, I don't want it to be super dark. I want to keep the center kind of light. So by adding water, I'm now getting a lighter shade of that purple paint. It thins it out. I'm going to dry off my brush a little bit. I feel like it's overloaded. And just pick up some with the tip, and I'm going to go into that water. Now I have this nice lighter shade of purple, and I'm going to do the same thing. Kind of trail my brush. And I'm touching the green as I go. And you can make this as fine of an edge as you want, or as wide of an edge as you want. Because remember, the sky is not perfect lines of color. Okay, now add a little more water into those edges and kind of move them. They kind of fade into my paper. Maybe I want to add a little green, nice and light. I can put that onto my tray. Add up some more water. I'm just going to kind of add the green. I don't want to do a whole nother stripe. I just kind of want to add into this space next to the purple. I kind of did opposite sides. I started down here and then I went to the top. And it's okay if I go out of the lines a little bit because I'm going to end up cutting it out later on. So when I have those puddles of color, I'm going to dry off my brush, and see this little puddle? I just want to absorb that with my dried brush. If you leave big puddles of paint or water, what's going to happen later on is it's going to dry and it's going to be a big white watermark on your paper. It won't accept any color into that space. So now I'm going to go back into my water. Just going to dampen this dry paper in these areas here. And this is where I'm going to start building the intensity, deeper color. Okay, I'm going to go right into my green. Now that looks like a lot of puddle of color, so I'm going to dry out my brush. And I'm going to absorb it, dry it off. It's like using paper towel, but instead you're using your paintbrush. So once I start seeing that it kind of absorbed all the liquid that it can take, I dry it off. Now to this edge. Maybe I don't want this one to go all the way to the top. I'm being very imperfect, so it makes it look interesting.